Today, we are going to talk about the Menendez Brothers Mansion in Beverly Hills. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. This story is being covered by basically every major news outlet lately after Netflix released their show Monsters, which is a 9-episode reenactment of what happened here. Let's put it this way, guys. The story is super messed up, like really messed up. I'm not typically into this true crime stuff, but I did watch the Netflix special and it was very disturbing. The gist of the story for anyone who's living under a rock is that on August 20th, 1989, two brothers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, rolled up on their parents' Beverly Hills mansion with a couple of shotguns. They walked in the front door and they killed both their mom and their dad as they were sitting on the couch watching TV. The case was a pretty big deal at the time. Seeing two rich kids from Beverly Hills walk into a mansion and kill both their parents in cold blood was not exactly something that you saw every day. But things got even more twisted during the trial when details emerged about why these guys did what they did. They allegedly faced years and years of abuse by both their mother and their father, so they said that they basically did what they had to do in an act of self-defense. This whole situation is crazy to me. I was only like 3 years old when this all went down, so I only first heard about the Menendez brothers like 2 weeks ago or something. But all that being said, why are we talking about these kids today? This is a real estate channel. Well, when I was watching that monster show on Netflix, I couldn't help but find myself wondering whatever happened to that mansion in the flats of Beverly Hills, because I would guess that nobody ever wanted to live here again after such a gruesome crime went down inside the house. What I dug up was interesting, so I figured I would just flip on the camera and share with you guys all the stuff that I found. We'll look at stuff like, okay, what did the parents pay for the house back in the 1980s? Who has owned the house since the crime went down? We'll take a look at all the recent photos of the house because it looks pretty much the same as it did way back then as far as I could tell. And of course, we'll talk about what the house most recently sold for and whether or not the buyer got a good deal because of what happened here. The Menendez Brothers Mansion was originally built in 1927, nearly 100 years ago. Records on this place only go back about 50 years though. We know a real estate mogul named Mark Slotkin owned it back in like the 1960s or so. He put the house through a heavy renovation in 1974 where he added square footage and he soundproofed all of the rooms. The soundproofing part of it is kind of weird. I'm not really exactly sure why he'd want to soundproof the entire house. My best guess would be that he was an entertainer and he just didn't want to disturb the neighbors. But anyways, he lived in the place until 1988 when he sold it to the Menendez family. They paid $4 million. Obviously, we're not going to see exactly what the house looked like when the Menendez family lived here. That was a long time ago, but there are some photos from when the house was most recently listed for sale, so let's just flip through these together. I'd say these exterior shots are the most iconic shots from the show. The Netflix series really only showed like a couple of the rooms inside. And now that I mention that, I don't even know if the Netflix series used the actual house or a set, but I'll tell you this, the pictures that we're looking at right now look exactly like the ones from Netflix, that's for sure. This is what you see when you walk through the front door, and through this door in the back is where everything went down. Some parts of the house are very beautiful. We got to remember, this isn't some modern mansion. This place is historic. It's like a Mediterranean style. It's a big house too. There's 9,000 square feet here. In total, there are 7 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. Here we're getting a little bit closer to that room where everything happened. Big formal dining room. We got wainscoting on the walls, some very fancy crown molding on the ceiling. And this, honestly, like, I kind of am sick to my stomach. This is the room, you guys. Like, this is where it happened. It's laid out in the exact same way too, which is very weird. I don't know why the listing agent would have done this, but it's obviously different furniture and a different rug and stuff, but this is exactly where it happened with the windows behind it and everything. Like, I'm remembering scenes from the show, and this is just weird. This is creepy. They got a wet bar somewhere in this house, and this just goes to show how old school this house is. They even have like an old house phone in here. This almost looks like an office phone. Here's the powder room. Overall, pretty hideous, but it kind of goes with this like Mediterranean vibe of the house. The kitchen is huge. We got higher ceilings in here, which is a nice detail. It looks like a couple of skylights, and then in the back there's like a little breakfast nook. Wow, Talk about a master bedroom. So there are multiple balconies and you basically have a living room inside of your master. That's pretty crazy. Not much for views here because we're in the flats, but still, it's nice to have a big balcony off your bedroom. Decent sized bathroom, honestly feels a little dated. Another one of those office phones inside. And then they have a wet bar here too, inside the bathroom. Here's the master closet. Here's another angle of that master bath. It's even bigger than I thought. Oh, and then I guess we got a second closet. It's like a his and her closet kind of a situation. This closet is massive. Upstairs, oh yeah, this is bringing me back to, if you guys watched the Netflix series, you probably remember some scenes from this upstairs area where they're like running up and down the hallway and down the stairs. Weird. Here's another one of the bedrooms. The office is outfitted kind of like that game room where we saw the pool table. This bathroom has a bidet. I feel like that's kind of an old school feature too. Like you don't really see bidets installed in modern homes. Another random bedroom. Another office. Here is the laundry room. They tucked this guest house over in the corner, which it doesn't even look like this would meet setback requirements, at least out here in Arizona. This thing is like right up against the lot line, but that's a pretty nice feature to have in your house. Anyways, you guys, these photos just keep going and going and going. There's like 15 more shots. We don't need to look at every one of them in detail together. I just wanted us to kind of get a little bit of a better feel for the inside of this house, especially because in a minute here, I also want to take a look at the comps and understand whether or not this house was sold at a discount for the neighborhood based on what happened. The horrific shooting happened in 1989, just 1 year after the Menendez family bought this mansion, and just 2 years later, the home was sold to an undisclosed buyer for $3.6 million. I don't know much about what was going on in the Beverly Hills real estate market during the 1980s and 1990s, but I will say this. If you think about the Menendez family paying $4 million for the house in 1988, and then basically just 3 years later, after the whole double murder situation happens, the house resells for $3.6 million. For one, I would have thought the house would have sat way longer on the market before it sold, and for two, I would have thought it would have sold at a bigger discount than that too. Anyways, this first buyer didn't hold on to the house for long. In 1993, a guy named William Link bought the mansion for an undisclosed amount, and Link, ironically, was the co-creator of the murder mystery TV show called Murder, She Wrote. I guess with the work that he did, maybe it made it a little bit less weird to own a house that was the scene of a murder. Link lived here for 8 years before selling the house in 2001 to Sam Delug. Sam is a telecommunications guy. He's the owner of this company called A&I Networks. Sam lived here a long time, you guys. He really settled into the Menendez house. He lived here from 2001 all the way to 2024 when he finally resold it. And when he resold it this time, again, it went pretty quick. He listed it for sale in December of 2023 for just under $20 million bucks. And 3 months later, it sold for $17 million even, just a 15% discount from the asking price. Buyers this time around were an LLC called Laha Elm, which Realtor uncovered is owned by the Laha Janis family. Never heard of them, but apparently they do a lot of real estate transactions around LA. Some of these experts are saying that the Menendez mansion would have sold for way more if it wasn't for its dark history. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, so I just want to look at some comps together here really quick. I'm not going to share the exact address in today's video. I'll explain why in a minute, but the house is in this general area. And remember, it sold for $17 million most recently, which is like $1,900 a square foot. If we look at this immediate area in the flats, there's really only one house that's even close to that 17 million mark, and it's this one for $20 million. But this house is 13,000 square feet, so that puts this one at like $1,500 a square foot, and look at it, it looks brand new. We have this house down here, $14.8 million, and it is smaller, so on a price per square foot basis, this is actually a pretty good comparable, and it's a similar Mediterranean style as well, so I'd say that this house makes for a good comp, or at least says that the Menendez house sold for the right price at $17 million. This one right here is $11 million. This is actually just goes to show how crazy Beverly Hills is. $11 million bucks. They say it's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house, but Look at the listing description. Please note, main photo is a rendering, sold for land value, house requires demolition. Okay, so this is $11 million just for a lot that's like a third of an acre. So what I want to do now is flip over to sold properties, and this is sold within the last 6 months. You'll see here there's only 17 results, and we got 12 million, 13 million, 10 million, 8 million, 12 million. There's one outlier at 27 million, but this house is beautiful. It looks like a new build. I'd say this house right here is probably the best sold comparable that we've got. It's very close in proximity to the Menendez house. It's a very similar size to the Menendez house as far as the specs are concerned. It sold very recently, 10/9/2024, and this one only went for $12.2 million. At this point, after looking at some of these comps, I wouldn't say that the Menendez house took a hit because of its history. I'd say if anything, it actually kind of sold for a premium. Lately, neighbors have been pretty upset by all the publicity that this house is getting following the Netflix series. I guess there's just people day and night who are driving by and taking pictures in front of it. Probably pretty annoying if you're one of those neighbors. But that Laha Janis family who bought it has actually begun a pretty extensive renovation of the mansion. One of the contractors even did a walkthrough on his TikTok, and you can see that they're really tearing this place up. It looks like they're removing basically all of the interior finishes in here with the exception of just a couple of details, which as we watch this, I'm not exactly sure how the owners would feel about this whole video situation. In case anybody cares, here's my 2 cents on what I think about this case, because people seem to be very divided about this. Like half the people out there think that these kids should be let out of prison, and the other half of people think that they're killers who deserve to spend the rest of their life in prison. The thing is, it is a fact that the Menendez brothers killed their parents. Like, there's no disputing that or debating that. They admitted it themselves. They're definitely guilty of that crime. But the argument lately is that if this exact same case was presented today with all of the allegations of abuse that these boys faced, that the verdict outcome would have been different than it was back in the 80s. As it stands, the Menendez brothers are in their 50s and they're expected to spend the rest of their lives in prison. But some people are doing everything they can to unearth new evidence, get the case opened back up, and give these guys another shot at trial. Even Kim Kardashian visited them in prison, and she's now showing her support to get them released early. It's honestly really hard for me to pick a side here because this story is just so dark. And on one hand, it's like, okay, if these kids did actually go through what they're saying that they went through, that's absolutely horrifying, and the parents kind of got what they deserve. But on the other hand, it's also kind of hard to justify ever doing what these guys did to their parents. Like, couldn't they have just taken another path? Like, maybe call the police? By the looks of things, a lot more information will surface on this crazy situation over the coming weeks and months, so we'll just have to be on the lookout to see how this all unfolds. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below before you go. I'll see you next week.